Have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone around you seems to drain you emotionally, to the point of stealing your peace and mental clarity? Whether it's at work or in your personal life, dealing with toxic people can be incredibly exhausting. But what if I told you there's a way to stay calm and in control, even in the most stressful situations? In today's video, we're going to explore 5 Stoic practices that you can immediately apply to maintain your serenity, no matter how chaotic the environment around you may be. Stoicism, an ancient philosophy, not only offers wisdom, but also practical tools that can transform the way you deal with the outside world, especially when that world includes toxic people. Imagine being able to preserve your inner peace in any situation, controlling your emotions and becoming immune to the provocations of those who try to throw you off balance. These 5 practices will not only help you navigate challenging environments, but also strengthen your mental and emotional resilience. So if you're ready to regain your balance and protect your mental health, keep watching. You won't want to miss this. Before we dive into the practices, it's important to understand what Stoicism is and why it's so relevant today. Stoicism is an ancient school of philosophy that emerged in Greece over 2,000 years ago, with thinkers like Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius. But despite its historical roots, its teachings remain incredibly practical and relevant. After all, the modern world isn't so different in one key aspect. We all face difficulties and challenges, and Stoicism offers tools to help us deal with those problems in a resilient and thoughtful way. The central point of Stoicism is simple. We cannot control what happens around us, but we can control how we react to it. And that's the key to staying calm amid chaos, especially when dealing with toxic people. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what's within our control, accept what we cannot change, and strengthen our minds and spirits so we can face any challenge without losing our inner peace. In modern life, especially for professionals in high-pressure environments, these lessons are more necessary than ever. Imagine facing a week full of tight deadlines, challenging meetings, and of course, co-workers who seem to go out of their way to make your day harder. Stoicism offers us the opportunity to transform these situations, not by trying to change others or the environment, but by changing our perspective and how we respond to those challenges. So as we move forward in this video, remember that Stoicism isn't just an abstract philosophy. It's a practice that can be applied every day in any situation. Now let's explore how this works in practice with 5 specific lessons that will help you preserve your inner peace, even when surrounded by toxic people. Practice 1. Control your focus. The first Stoic practice you can immediately apply when dealing with toxic people is to focus on what's within your control. While this concept is simple, it's incredibly powerful. Often we feel frustrated and emotionally drained because we try to change or control things that are beyond our reach, like the behavior of others. When dealing with a toxic person, whether at work or in your personal life, the instinct may be to correct their behavior, make them see their faults, or worse, change their entire attitude. However, Stoicism teaches us that this is futile. You cannot control what a person does or how they act. The only thing you can control is your own response. Stoicism constantly reminds us that what matters is how we react to the external world, not what happens in the external world. Once you understand and internalize this, you start saving an incredible amount of mental energy. Instead of exhausting yourself by trying to change a situation or person beyond your control, you can focus all that energy on improving how you deal with the situation. Imagine, for instance, that you're in a work meeting and a colleague constantly tries to interrupt or undermine your ideas. It's easy to get irritated, frustrated, or even retaliate. However, by adopting this Stoic practice, you'll learn to focus only on your own reaction. Maybe you decide to stay calm and composed, not letting this colleague's provocations affect you emotionally. Or maybe you choose to handle the situation with grace, knowing that their actions are not within your control. This practice of focusing on what you can control also has a profound benefit. It gives power back to you. When you stop trying to control what's beyond your reach, you eliminate much of the stress and anxiety in your life. After all, it's exhausting to try to change others. Instead, you learn to adapt and respond in a balanced and rational way. You might even find that by changing your own response, the dynamics of your relationship with the toxic person start to shift. This doesn't mean you're accepting or allowing the toxic behavior, but rather that you're choosing how to respond to it in a way that protects your inner peace. So, next time you find yourself in a stressful situation with someone difficult, ask yourself, what is really within my control here? This simple question can completely change how you face challenges, and most importantly, help you keep your serenity intact. Focusing on what you can control is one of the most effective tools in Stoicism, and when you master this practice, you'll find that many of life's frustrations start to fade away. Practice 2. Emotional detachment. The second essential Stoic practice for dealing with toxic people is emotional detachment. In Stoicism, emotional detachment doesn't mean you should become insensitive or indifferent to those around you. Rather, it's about maintaining control over your emotions so that others' behavior doesn't disturb your inner peace. When dealing with toxic people, one of the biggest traps is allowing their actions to trigger negative and harmful reactions in us, like anger, frustration, or resentment. And this is exactly what Stoicism seeks to avoid. Think of a situation where someone unfairly criticizes you, whether at work or in your personal life. Many people's immediate reaction is to defend themselves or snap back, which can quickly turn into a destructive cycle of emotional responses. Stoicism teaches that instead of reacting impulsively, it's possible to emotionally detach from the other person's behavior. This means understanding that their criticism or actions have no power over you unless you give it to them. By practicing emotional detachment, you begin to see toxic behavior for what it really is, an attempt to manipulate your emotions, and by detaching, you become immune to this manipulation. An unfair criticism, you can listen, reflect, and decide whether or not it deserves your attention. By doing this, you maintain control over your reactions and prevent the other person's toxicity from contaminating your inner peace. Here's a practical example to illustrate. Imagine you're dealing with a boss who constantly makes demeaning comments about your work, even though you know you're delivering quality results. The natural tendency is to feel undervalued or even angry, but Stoicism teaches you to view these comments differently. Instead of internalizing the criticism and allowing it to undermine your self-esteem, you practice emotional detachment. You realize that your boss's words reflect more about them than about your work, and you decide not to let it affect your emotional state. This practice is transformative because it frees you from the weight of others' expectations and judgments. When we learn to emotionally detach, toxic people's actions lose their power over us. They may try to provoke a reaction, but you're no longer at the mercy of those attempts. This doesn't mean you become passive or permissive in the face of toxic behavior. On the contrary, emotional detachment allows you to handle the situation more rationally and calmly, without being driven by emotional impulses. As you master emotional detachment, you gain a new perspective on everyday conflicts. Situations that once caused stress, anger, or resentment now become opportunities to practice emotional control and preserve your inner peace. As a result, you become stronger, more resilient, and less vulnerable to the toxicity of those around you. Practice 3. Acceptance of the uncontrollable. The third Stoic practice that can transform how you deal with toxic people is the acceptance of the uncontrollable. In Stoicism, one of the most powerful teachings is that many things in life are beyond our control. By accepting this reality, you free yourself from the frustration and suffering caused by constantly trying to change what's out of your reach. Often, the behavior of toxic people is a classic example of something you cannot control. Whether at work or in personal relationships, these people can be selfish, manipulative, or aggressive, and it's natural to wish they would change. However, Stoicism teaches us that no matter how much we may want it, we have no power over the actions, words, or attitudes of others. All we can control are our own thoughts and responses. This principle of accepting the uncontrollable is a powerful tool for maintaining calm in conflict situations. Think of a coworker who constantly tries to undermine your ideas or devalue your contributions. The initial impulse might be to try to change this person's attitude or confront them so they can see their mistakes. However, by adopting a Stoic approach, you realize that their attitude is beyond your control. You cannot force them to be respectful or recognize the value of your work. What you can control is how you respond to the situation. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity or resignation. Instead, it's about recognizing the limits of your control and, in doing so, focusing your energy on something more productive. Accepting that you cannot change a toxic person's behavior doesn't mean you agree with it. It means you're choosing not to waste your emotional energy trying to alter it. This allows you to shift your focus to what truly matters, protecting your inner peace and continuing to act with integrity, regardless of the other person's behavior. Additionally, accepting the uncontrollable brings a sense of relief and clarity. Instead of feeling frustrated by a situation that doesn't change, you focus on acting within the limits of what you can influence. For example, instead of trying to change your toxic coworker's attitude, you could work on improving your own performance or seek out opportunities that recognize your skills. The key point here is that by accepting what's beyond your control, you avoid the emotional drain that often results from unrealistic expectations. In summary, accepting what you cannot control doesn't mean ignoring the problem. On the contrary, this practice allows you to choose your battles more wisely, focusing your energy on what truly makes a difference. This preserves your inner peace and prevents toxic people's behavior from disturbing your emotional stability. Practice 4. Negative visualization. The fourth Stoic practice you can adopt to better deal with toxic people is negative visualization. This concept might seem counterintuitive at first, but it's an extremely effective tool for facing challenging situations with more serenity. In Stoicism, negative visualization involves mentally anticipating the worst possible scenarios, emotionally preparing for what might happen. This doesn't mean being pessimistic or living in fear, but rather being prepared to face any situation in a more balanced and controlled way. When dealing with toxic people, we're often caught off guard by their attitudes or behaviors. A demeaning comment, a selfish action, or an emotional attack can destabilize us if we're not ready to face it. Negative visualization helps us anticipate these situations, so when they happen, we're not as affected. Instead of reacting with anger or frustration, we'll already be mentally prepared, allowing us to respond in a calmer and more rational way. Think of a situation at work where you know a colleague has a habit of undermining your ideas in meetings. By applying negative visualization, you anticipate this behavior before the next meeting. You imagine how the interaction will unfold and emotionally prepare yourself to hear the negative comments without letting them affect you. When the moment comes, you won't be caught off guard and will be able to respond calmly, maintaining control of the situation. This practice not only helps reduce the emotional impact of toxic people's actions, but also increases your ability to respond in real time. Since you're already prepared for the worst-case scenario, anything less severe will be easier to handle. Additionally, by practicing negative visualization, you learn to appreciate positive moments even more, knowing that adverse situations can happen, but you are mentally strong enough to face them. Another practical example of negative visualization can be applied in personal life. Imagine you're dealing with a relative who frequently makes critical or judgmental comments. Before a family gathering, you use negative visualization to anticipate these comments and emotionally prepare yourself. When that relative makes the unpleasant remark, you'll be ready and your reaction will be much calmer and more controlled than it would have been if you were unprepared. Negative visualization isn't about expecting the worst all the time, but about being mentally prepared to handle the unexpected. This practice, common among Stoics, allows you to navigate difficult situations more easily and, above all, preserve your inner peace, as you've already faced the worst-case scenario in your mind before it even happens. Practice 5. Daily self-discipline. The fifth and final Stoic practice you can apply to deal with toxic people is daily self-discipline. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of cultivating self-discipline as a way to strengthen the mind and emotions. This daily practice is essential for preparing for the challenges that arise throughout life, especially those involving difficult people and toxic environments. Self-discipline in Stoicism isn't just about following tasks or rigidly adhering to rules. It's a constant exercise of emotional control, self-awareness, and self-reflection. Each day offers opportunities to practice this discipline, whether it's controlling how you react to a provocation or resisting the impulse to respond impulsively to unfair criticism. The more you practice, the more resilient you become, and over time the toxicity around you loses its ability to affect your inner peace. For example, imagine you work in an environment where gossip or destructive criticism is common. Without self-discipline, it's easy to get caught up in these discussions, respond emotionally, or even allow these behaviors to affect your productivity and well-being. However, by practicing self-discipline daily, you remind yourself of your principles and consciously choose not to react to these influences. You train your mind to stay focused on what truly matters and resist the temptation to get caught up in other people's behavior. This practice also involves regular reflection on your actions and reactions. A Stoic begins and ends the day with self-reflection, evaluating how they handled the situations that arose. You can do the same by asking yourself, did I react in a balanced way today? Did I maintain control in difficult situations? By incorporating this habit of self-assessment, you become increasingly aware of your behavior patterns and, more importantly, how you can improve them. Another aspect of self-discipline is developing patience. When dealing with toxic people, we can't always avoid interacting with them. However, with self-discipline, we learn to be patient and respond thoughtfully rather than react in the heat of the moment. This patience isn't passivity, but rather a deliberate choice not to let toxic behavior dictate our emotional state. Finally, daily self-discipline strengthens your emotional resilience. By practicing it every day, you build a kind of emotional muscle that makes you less vulnerable to external provocations. Over time, this translates into a greater ability to stay calm and focused, even in the most challenging environments. Therefore, self-discipline isn't just a tool for achieving long-term goals. It's also a way to cultivate a strong and balanced mind, ready to deal with everyday challenges, especially those presented by toxic people. Now that you've learned the 5 Stoic practices for dealing with toxic people, controlling your focus, emotional detachment, accepting the uncontrollable, negative visualization, and daily self-discipline, it's time to apply these teachings in your daily life. Each of these practices offers a practical and powerful way to preserve your inner peace, even when circumstances around you seem challenging or overwhelming. Dealing with toxic people, whether at work, in personal relationships, or anywhere else, doesn't have to be an exhausting experience. By focusing on what you can control, emotionally detaching from provocations, accepting what's beyond your reach, mentally preparing for difficult situations, and practicing self-discipline every day, you become stronger, more resilient, and more prepared to face any challenge. So, I invite you to reflect. Which of these practices resonated with you the most? Which one are you most excited to apply in your life? Leave a comment below and share your experiences with toxic people. I'd love to hear how these practices have helped you. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about how Stoicism and other philosophies can transform your life, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and share this video with anyone you think could benefit from these practices. Together, we can create a more balanced and wise space to face everyday challenges. Remember, in silence we learn, in wisdom we grow. See you in the next video.